Soil from First Temple period structures can end up inside later features like drainage channels built hundreds of years afterward. Think of it like a crime scene disturbed by time itself. Buckets of soil were carefully removed, labeled, and transported to a second location, the Emek Tzurim wet sifting facility, where every grain of dirt is washed, screened, and inspected by human eyes. And that's where our first witness appears. At Emek Tzurim, staff member Moriah Cohen was doing routine work, washing soil through a wire screen. Thousands of fragments pass through these screens every season. Pottery chips, glass shards, bones, coins. Then she saw something unusual. A tiny shard with a strange pattern. At first, she thought it was just decoration. Then the realization hit her. It was writing, cuneiform. She later said, "I realized it was cuneiform writing, and I screamed." It's incredibly moving to think that after 2,700 years, I was the first person to touch this fragment. In forensic terms, she was the first responder. From that moment, the artifact entered a chain of expert investigation. The fragment measured about 2.5 centimeters, roughly 1 inch across. It was likely part of a bulla, a clay seal impression that was once attached to a document or package. Its surface preserved precise, wedge-shaped characters, Neo-Assyrian Akkadian, the administrative language of the Assyrian Empire. This alone was shocking. Cuneiform is extremely rare in Jerusalem. Finding a genuine Assyrian administrative fragment inside the city had never happened before. Paleographic analysis dated the script to the 8th or 7th century BC, the late First Temple period. This was the era of kings like Hezekiah and Manasseh, the era of Assyrian domination. But what exactly did the text say? Assyriologists analyzed the fragments sign by sign. Even though parts were broken, several clues emerged. First, a deadline. The text referenced the first of the month of Av. Second, a high-ranking title. A chariot officer, literally, the one who holds the reins. This was a known elite Assyrian official responsible for royal communications and enforcement. Third, the tone and formula. The language matched administrative demand texts. It read like a command, likely involving tribute or taxes with implied consequences for disobedience. In modern terms, this wasn't a friendly letter. It was a formal notice from imperial authority. But one question remained. Was this document written locally in Jerusalem, or did it come directly from Assyria itself? Petrographic analysis examined the clay under a microscope. Mineral inclusions act like geological fingerprints. The results were clear. The clay did not match Jerusalem or Judean geology. It matched deposits from the Tigris River basin, the heartland of Assyria, home to cities like Nineveh and Nimrod. This wasn't a local imitation. This clay traveled hundreds of kilometers. The message originated in the imperial core and arrived in Jerusalem. Now the pieces come together. In the 8th and 7th centuries BC, the Assyrian Empire dominated the Near East. Small kingdoms like Judah survived as vassal states, obligated to pay tribute and remain loyal. Two kings of Judah are particularly relevant here. Hezekiah, who reigned around 715 to 686 BC, and Manasseh, who reigned from about 686 to 642 BC. According to the Bible, Hezekiah initially submitted to Assyrian demands, paying tribute to Sennacherib to avoid destruction. Later, when rebellion or hesitation occurred, Assyria responded with threats and military action, famously besieging Judahite cities. This tiny fragment fits perfectly into that historical world, a royal Assyrian message. Delivered by an elite officer, the chariot officer mentioned on the clay, demanding payment by a fixed deadline, threatening severe consequences if ignored. Consequences the Bible describes in the campaigns against Judah. In short, this is an ancient final notice from the empire to a vassal king. Somewhere in Jerusalem, an official of Hezekiah, or perhaps even Manasseh, once held this very message in their hands. Then history swallowed it, until now. So does this tiny fragment prove the Bible? Not in the sense of theology. Archaeology can't measure divine action. But it does give us something incredibly powerful. a tangible connection between text and history. Consider the kings we just mentioned, Hezekiah and Manasseh. The Bible describes Hezekiah paying tribute to Assyria to avoid destruction. It also records the Assyrian threat when rebellion occurred, with Sennacherib laying siege to cities and sending messages demanding compliance. Manasseh later ruled under the shadow of Assyria, continuing Judah's vassal relationship. This clay fragment matches that scenario exactly. It originated from the Assyrian heartland. It was delivered by a high-ranking official, the chariot officer. It set a deadline for tribute and threatened severe consequences if ignored. The artifact is not just compatible with the biblical story. It illustrates the mechanics behind it. For believers, this fragment provides a physical snapshot of the world in which kings, prophets, and scribes operated. The politics, threats, and administration described in Scripture were not abstract. They were real pressures carried by real documents. For secular historians and skeptics, it is independent corroboration. Archaeology confirms that Jerusalem was an active vassal city under Assyria. Assyrian bureaucracy extended its reach through official correspondence. The biblical narrative and Assyrian administrative practice converge, reinforcing each other without relying solely on Scripture. In other words, this tiny piece of clay shows us tribute and diplomacy in action, imperial pressure on a vassal state, and the day-to-day reality behind biblical stories. History, Scripture, and archaeology all point to the same conclusion. The biblical stage was real, and these were the actors moving across it. This fragment may be small, but it carries the weight of a kingdom, and finally, after 2,700 years, we can see it in the light of day. This fragment is small enough to fit on your fingertip, yet it carries the weight of empires. It reminds us that history is not made only by kings and battles, but by bureaucracy, deadlines, and human decisions, often invisible to the naked eye. Somewhere in Jerusalem, a palace official once held this very message in their hands, reading the Assyrian orders. A world of fear, diplomacy, and duty was contained in a simple clay bulla. Archaeology has pulled that moment back into the light. For Christians and Jews, it underlines the historical reality behind the biblical narrative. The kings, the prophets, the political pressures, they were all real, tangible, and datable. For secular historians, it is independent evidence of empire, administration, and power, confirming a small kingdom navigating survival under overwhelming might. For all of us, it is a reminder. History is written not only in monumental temples and grand inscriptions, but in the tiny, overlooked fragments buried in the dust. A single fingernail-sized piece of clay can rewrite assumptions, refine timelines, and connect stories across millennia. This is more than archaeology. It is a conversation across time, a whisper from the heart of an empire to the edge of its world, still speaking after 2,700 years. And if we listen carefully, the past is never truly silent. Thank you for watching.